The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the UES Thunderchild as Captain James Walker stared at the massive holographic display in front of him. His hands gripped the command chair's armrests tightly, but his face remained calm. The crew needed to see strength now more than ever. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding before them. 1,000 enemy ships detected, sir," Lieutenant Tom Miller responded from the weapons station. "They're moving in a spiral pattern. Standard swarm attack formation." Walker nodded slowly. He had seen this before, but never at this scale. The alien ships looked like giant dark blue wasps, their biological hulls pulsing with an inner light. They moved together perfectly, as if they were all parts of a single massive creature. In a way, they were. The swarm's hive mind made sure of that. "What's the status of our quantum systems?" Walker asked, turning to look at Dr. Emma Reed, who was working frantically at her engineering station. "All systems are green, Captain," she replied without looking up. "The new upgrades are holding steady, but they're still untested in actual combat." Her fingers flew across the holographic controls as she made final adjustments to their experimental weapons. The Thunderchild was humanity's newest and most advanced warship. It was also now their last hope. The swarm had appeared 3 months ago, destroying every human colony in their path. The Outer Defense Fleet had tried to stop them, 50 of humanity's finest ships. Now only the Thunderchild remained. "Atlas, show me the enemy's predicted attack vectors," Walker commanded. The ship's AI responded immediately, filling the main display with glowing red lines that showed where the swarm would strike. "Their current formation suggests a 98% probability of a full encirclement attempt," Atlas reported, its voice calm and measured. "They will try to trap us in an energy net within the next 6 minutes." Walker allowed himself a small smile. The swarm was predictable. They always used the same tactics that had worked for them in the past. They had no reason to change. After all, why would you change something that had never failed? "Dr. Reed," Walker called out, "is the Ghost protocol ready?" "Yes, sir," she responded, finally looking up from her station. "But I should warn you, we've never tested it with the quantum drive at full power. The energy requirements are massive. If something goes wrong, we'll be just as dead as if we do nothing." Walker finished for her. "And at least this way, we'll go down fighting." The bridge crew nodded in agreement. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be their last. The Thunderchild had been rushing back to Earth, hoping to warn them about the swarm's new tactics when they detected this massive fleet heading straight for their home world. They couldn't run. Even if they escaped, Earth would be defenseless. "Enemy ships are launching their first wave," Miller reported. 200 ships breaking formation to attack. Walker straightened in his chair. This was it, the moment that would decide if humanity's latest technology could stand against the swarm's overwhelming numbers. "All hands, battle stations," he ordered, his voice carrying throughout the ship. "Dr. Reed, begin Ghost Protocol initialization. Miller, charge all quantum weapon banks. Atlas, begin running combat predictions and prepare for emergency maneuvers." The Thunderchild hummed with power as its experimental systems came online. The quantum drive began to spin up, its energy readings climbing higher than they'd ever gone in testing. Warning messages flashed across several screens, but Dr. Reed quickly adjusted the power flow, keeping everything just barely within safe limits. "First wave will reach us in 30 seconds, Miller announced. "Ghost protocol at 70%, Dr. Reed added. "Ready in 15 seconds. Walker watched as the first wave of swarm ships approached. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, their biological hulls shifting colors as they prepared to attack. Energy began to build at their forward sections. The swarm's version of weapons, using concentrated plasma that could melt through standard ship armor in seconds. "Ghost protocol ready," Dr. Reed announced just as the enemy ships came into firing range. "Execute," Walker commanded. The Thunderchild's quantum drive activated, and reality seemed to bend around them. Suddenly, instead of one human warship, there were 5 identical vessels, each one seemingly as solid as the original. The holograms were perfect, created by bending quantum fields in ways that even most human scientists didn't fully understand. The swarm ships hesitated, something they had never been seen to do before. Their hive mind was confused, unable to determine which target was real. They fired a massive volley of plasma weapons, but 4/5 of their shots passed harmlessly through holographic duplicates. "Return fire," Walker ordered. "Full quantum barrage, concentrate on their lead ships." The Thunderchild's new weapons came to life. Beams of pure quantum energy lashed out, ignoring the normal laws of physics. Where traditional weapons would have been weakened by the distance, these beams struck with full force. The lead swarm ship's biological hulls had no defense against this new type of attack. 10 ships burst apart in the first volley, their remains spinning away into space. "Enemy is adjusting formation," Miller reported excitedly. "They're breaking into smaller groups. They don't know how to handle multiple targets." "Keep the pressure on," Walker commanded. "Atlas, predict their next move." "Dr. Reed, can we add more ghost ships?" "Negative, sir," Reed replied, her hands dancing across her controls. "We're at maximum power already, but I might be able to make our ghosts move independently, make them even harder to track." "Do it," Walker ordered. He watched as the holographic duplicates of the Thunderchild began to move in different patterns, each one firing seemingly real quantum weapons. The swarm's first wave was in complete disarray, having lost 30 ships in the first minute of battle. But Walker knew this was just the beginning. 900 more swarm ships were still out there, watching and learning. The real test would come when they adapted to this new threat. Humanity had surprised them this time, but the swarm's greatest strength was their ability to learn from their failures. "Sir," Atlas interrupted his thoughts, "I'm detecting energy buildup in the remaining first-wave ships. They appear to be preparing for a suicide attack." Walker's eyes narrowed. This was new. The swarm had never sacrificed ships before. Perhaps they weren't as predictable as he'd thought. "All power to forward shields," he commanded. "Prepare for impact." "Dr. Reed, can we jump?" "Quantum drive needs 30 seconds to cool down," she reported tensely. "We're stuck here." The remaining swarm ships from the first wave accelerated toward them, their hulls glowing brighter and brighter as they prepared to detonate themselves. The ghost ships wouldn't fool them this time. They were going to blanket the entire area with plasma explosions. Walker gripped his chair tighter. "Braced for impact," he ordered. "And prepare for emergency maneuvers. This battle's just getting started." The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The remaining ships from the swarm's first wave detonated themselves in a massive chain reaction, creating a wall of plasma that no normal ship could survive. The bridge crew of the Thunderchild held their breath as the energy wave approached. "Impact in 3 seconds," Atlas announced. "Shields at maximum capacity." Dr. Reed's hands flew across her control panel. "Rerouting all non-essential power to forward shields," she shouted. "Captain, this is going to be close." The wave hit them like a physical blow. The Thunderchild shuddered violently, and warning alarms screamed across every station. The ghost ships flickered and died as power was diverted to keeping the real ship intact. "Shield status," Walker demanded, holding onto his chair as the ship rocked. "Shields holding at 12%, Reed reported, her voice tight with concentration. "But we've lost the ghost protocol. The quantum projectors are fried. We'll need at least 10 minutes to get them back online." Walker nodded grimly. The swarm's suicide attack had been clever. They'd sacrificed their first wave to disable the Thunderchild's new technology. Now the remaining 900 ships were moving in, their formation shifting like a school of deadly fish. "Miller, what's their attack pattern?" Walker asked. "They're splitting into 3 groups, sir," Miller replied, studying his tactical display. 300 ships each. "They're trying to box us in." Walker thought quickly. Without the ghost protocol, They couldn't rely on confusion tactics anymore. But the Thunderchild had other tricks up its sleeve. "Atlas, show me the energy readings from the enemy ships," he ordered. The main display changed, showing heat and power signatures from the approaching swarm vessels. Walker studied the pattern, looking for something specific. "There," he said, pointing to a cluster of brighter signatures. "Those ships are directing the others. They're relay points for the hive mind." He turned to Dr. Reed. "Can we use that?" Reed's eyes lit up with understanding. "The quantum weapons," she said. "If we can disrupt their neural network." Her fingers began dancing across her controls again. "Captain, I have an idea. But it's risky. We need to get closer to those command ships." "How much closer?" Walker asked. "Point-blank range," Reed replied. "And we'll only get one shot at this." Walker looked at the tactical display again. Getting that close would mean flying straight into the heart of the swarm's formation. It would be like driving into a hurricane made of plasma weapons and alien ships. "Atlas, plot us a course," Walker ordered. "Lieutenant Miller, prepare all remaining weapons. We're going to show them why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The Thunderchild's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward into the approaching swarm. The alien ships immediately opened fire, filling space with deadly plasma bolts. "Evasive maneuvers," Walker commanded. "Miller, return fire only on ships directly in our path. Save our energy for the main strike." The massive human warship danced through space, performing maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. Atlas controlled their flight path with inhuman precision, finding gaps in the enemy fire that human pilots would have missed. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, Reed reported as a plasma bolt got through their weakened shields. "Emergency containment holding. But we can't take much more of this." They were deep in the swarm formation now, enemy ships all around them. The Thunderchild's point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down suicide attackers and incoming projectiles. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each person focused entirely on their task. "Dr. Reed," Walker called out, "whatever you're planning, now would be a good time." "Almost ready," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The quantum weapon modifications are at 90%. But sir, this is going to take everything we've got. We'll be running on emergency power afterward." A massive hit rocked the ship, throwing crew members against their restraints. "Shields failing," Miller shouted. "Multiple hull breaches. Now or never, Doctor," Walker said calmly. Reed took a deep breath and pressed the activation sequence. Quantum pulse deploying in 3, 2, 1. The Thunderchild's weapons didn't fire visible beams this time. Instead, the ship released a wave of quantum energy tuned to exactly the same frequency as the swarm's neural network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The nearest alien ships began to spin out of control, their biological components rejecting commands from their corrupted hive mind. The effect spread outward like ripples in a pond, each affected ship disrupting the neural connection of those around it. "It's working," Miller exclaimed. "Enemy ships are losing coordination. Their attack patterns are breaking down." Walker watched in amazement as the mighty swarm fleet began to fall into chaos. Ships crashed into each other, their perfect formation dissolving into random movement. Some vessels simply shut down, their biological systems unable to handle the conflicting signals. "How long will this last?" Walker asked. "Unknown," Reed replied, her eyes fixed on her readings. "We've never tried to disrupt their neural network before, but they're already trying to adapt. Look." She pointed to a group of ships at the edge of the affected area. They were changing color, their hulls shifting to block the quantum interference. The hive mind was learning, evolving in real time to counter the human attack. "Can we hit them again?" Walker asked. Reed shook her head. "Not for at least an hour. The quantum weapons are completely drained. We're running on auxiliary power only." Walker studied the tactical display. The swarm had lost nearly 200 ships to the quantum pulse, either through direct system failure or collisions. Another 100 were still spinning out of control, caught in the lingering effects of the disruption. But that left 600 ships still capable of fighting, and they were starting to regroup. "Atlas," Walker called out, "what are our options?" "Main weapons are offline," the AI reported. "Shields are at 3%. Hull integrity is compromised in 12 sections." However, the AI paused, something it rarely did. "I am detecting an interesting pattern in the enemy's recovery formation." Walker leaned forward. "Show me." A new display appeared, showing energy flows between the recovering swarm ships. They were forming a new neural network, but this one was different from their usual pattern. "They're afraid," Walker realized suddenly. "They're not just adapting. They're actively trying to protect themselves from another attack like that. They've never done that before." Reed looked up from her station, her eyes wide with understanding. "They've always relied on overwhelming force," she said. "They've never had to play defense before. This is completely new behavior for them." Walker smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. "Then let's show them why they're right to be afraid. Atlas, begin calculations for our next attack." "Dr. Reed, how quickly can you get our weapons back online?" "Working on it now, sir," she replied, her fingers already moving across her controls. "But whatever we do next, it has to count. We won't get another chance." Walker nodded, watching as the swarm ships continued to regroup. They had hurt the aliens badly, shown them that humanity wasn't helpless against their superior numbers. But the real test was still to come. The swarm was wounded but not defeated, and wounded predators were often the most dangerous. "All hands," Walker announced shipwide. "Prepare for round 3. The swarm is about to learn another lesson about humanity. We're our most dangerous when you think you have us beaten." The Thunderchill drifted through the debris field of destroyed swarm ships, its engines running silent. Emergency repair crews worked frantically throughout the vessel, trying to restore power to critical systems. On the bridge, the crew watched as the remaining swarm fleet regrouped, their biomechanical ships pulsing with an angry red glow. "Status report," Walker commanded, his voice hoarse from shouting orders during the last battle. "Not good, sir," Reed replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Main power is at 30%. Quantum weapons are slowly recharging, but we need at least 20 more minutes. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7 are contained, but we've lost our starboard armor plating. 623 enemy ships remaining," Miller added. "They're forming a new pattern I've never seen before. Atlas, can you analyze it?" The AI took a moment to process the data. "The swarm appears to be adapting its entire combat doctrine," Atlas reported. "They are creating multiple layers of defense while maintaining offensive capabilities. This suggests they now view us as a serious threat." Walker nodded slowly. The swarm had never shown this level of tactical thinking before. They had always relied on overwhelming force and their hive mind coordination. Now they were actually strategizing. "Sir," Miller suddenly called out. "Energy spike detected. They're doing something new." The remaining swarm ships began to pulse in unison, their biological hulls synchronizing in a way they'd never witnessed before. Streams of energy began to flow between the ships, creating a web of crackling power. "Dr. Reed, what are we looking at?" Walker asked, leaning forward in his chair. Reed's fingers flew across her console, analyzing the readings. They're combining their power systems," she said, her voice filled with both professional admiration and fear. "It's like they're turning their entire fleet into one massive weapon. The energy readings are off the charts." "How long until they can fire?" Walker demanded. "Unknown," Atlas replied. "This is completely new behavior, but based on the energy buildup rate, I estimate no more than 10 minutes. Walker looked at his tactical display. The Thunderchild was in no shape for another direct confrontation, but something about the swarm's new formation caught his eye. Their ships were now all connected by those energy streams, all part of one massive system. "Dr. Reed," he said slowly, What would happen if we overloaded their energy network? Reed's eyes widened as she caught his meaning. The feedback would cascade through their entire formation, she said. But sir, we'd need to get incredibly close to inject our own energy signature into their network, and with our shields this weak. We don't need shields, Walker interrupted. We need speed. Atlas, plot me a course through the debris field. Lieutenant Miller, divert all remaining weapon power to the engines. Dr. Reed, prepare to channel everything we've got into one massive energy pulse. The crew worked quickly, understanding the desperate nature of their plan. The Thunderchild's engines hummed back to life as power was rerouted from other systems. Energy buildup in the swarm fleet reaching critical levels, Atlas warned. 7 minutes until projected weapon discharge. All hands, Walker announced ship-wide, secure for high-speed maneuvers. This is going to get rough. The Thunderchild shot forward, accelerating through the field of destroyed swarm ships. Walker's plan was insane, but it was exactly the kind of thinking that the highly logical swarm couldn't predict. They were using the debris of their own destroyed ships as cover, making it harder for the enemy to track them. 5 minutes until swarm weapon discharge, Atlas updated. They are attempting to track us through the debris field. The ship shuddered as it scraped past a piece of destroyed swarm vessel. Warning lights flashed across every console as their already damaged hull took more punishment. But Walker kept them on course, threading the massive warship through gaps that seemed impossibly small. 3 minutes, Atlas announced. Enemy energy network approaching maximum capacity. Now, Miller, Walker commanded. Full power to engines. The Thunderchild burst out of the debris field like a bullet from a gun, aimed directly at the heart of the swarm formation. The alien ships began to react, but their energy network made them slower, less maneuverable. They couldn't break formation without disrupting their weapon buildup. 2 minutes until discharge, Atlas reported. We will not survive a direct hit. We're not going to give them the chance, Walker said grimly. Dr. Reed, prepare the energy pulse. Time it exactly with my mark. The Thunderchild closed the distance rapidly, taking hits from the few swarm ships that could bring weapons to bear. Hull plates tore away, and fires broke out in multiple sections. But they kept going, driving straight toward the center of the enemy formation. 1 minute, Atlas warned. Almost in position, Miller reported, his hand steady on the controls despite the chaos around them. The swarm's energy network was now clearly visible, a web of powerful forces holding their formation together. The alien ships were glowing bright enough to be painful to look at, their combined weapon nearly ready to fire. 30 seconds. Ready for energy pulse, Reed reported. Sir, this will burn out everything we have left. We'll be dead in space. Better than dead from their superweapon, Walker replied. Stand by. The Thunderchild plunged into the heart of the swarm formation, close enough to see individual details on the alien ship's hulls. Their massive weapon was about to discharge, the energy reaching critical levels. Now, Walker shouted. Reed slammed her hand down on the activation control. The Thunderchild released every bit of power it had left in one massive burst, not as a weapon, but as raw energy fed directly into the swarm's network. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The energy web between the swarm ships turned from blue to red to white hot. Their carefully controlled power network became a liability as the overload cascaded from ship to ship. Explosions began to chain through their formation as vessels began to rupture from the inside out. Clear the blast radius, Walker ordered. Emergency thrust. The Thunderchild's engines fired one last time, pushing them away from the disintegrating swarm fleet. Behind them, the chain reaction continued, each exploding ship adding its own energy to the overload, making it even worse for the survivors. Atlas, damage report, Walker called out as they limped away from the destruction. 347 enemy ships destroyed in the chain reaction, the AI reported. 192 severely damaged. Remaining vessels are retreating at maximum speed. There was a pause. Sir, the Thunderchild's power core is completely drained. Life support is on emergency backup only. We have approximately 6 hours of air remaining. Walker looked around at his exhausted bridge crew, then at the main display showing the retreating swarm ships. They had done it. They had not only survived, but had dealt the mighty swarm their first major defeat. The remaining ships were fleeing in terror, their supposedly perfect hive mind thrown into chaos by human ingenuity. Send out a distress signal, he ordered. Let Earth know what happened here. And let them know. He smiled tiredly. Let them know that humanity isn't the easy prey the swarm thought we were. As the emergency beacon began broadcasting their victory, the crew of the Thunderchild allowed themselves to relax slightly. They had 6 hours of air, but Earth ships would surely reach them before then. And they had just changed the course of the war. The swarm would think twice before attacking humans again. In the darkness of space, the Thunderchild floated amid the debris of its enemies, a testament to humanity's resourcefulness and determination. 1 ship against 1,000, and humanity had won. About that, Rogers said, turning to face him fully. Dr. Reed's quantum weapon modifications, the Ghost Protocol, the Energy Pulse tactic, we're already implementing these across the fleet. But more importantly, we're seeing something unprecedented in the swarm's behavior. Walker raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Rogers pulled out a tablet and showed him a series of tactical displays. The swarm is retreating on all fronts, not just from this sector, everywhere. They're pulling back to their own territory for the first time since we encountered them. And look at this. He zoomed in on an image of a swarm ship. Its normally smooth blue hull was now covered in what looked like armor plating. They're adapting, Walker said, understanding immediately, modifying their ships to defend against our tactics. Exactly, Rogers nodded. But here's the thing. They're not just copying our technology. They're innovating, creating new defenses we've never seen before. Your battle scared them so badly that they're actually evolving their entire species' approach to warfare. Walker thought about this. The swarm had always relied on their hive mind and overwhelming numbers. The idea that they could change, could learn to think individually and creatively, was both fascinating and terrifying. Sir, a young officer interrupted, saluting quickly. We're receiving a transmission. Well, you need to see this. They followed the officer to the Defiance Bridge, where a strange signal was being displayed on the main screen. It wasn't standard communication. It was a complex pattern of energy pulses, similar to the ones the swarm ships use to communicate with each other. They're trying to talk to us, Reed said excitedly, having joined them on the bridge. Not attack, not threaten, actually communicate. She worked quickly at a console, analyzing the signal. It's like nothing we've seen from them before. The pattern suggests individual thought, not hive mind coordination. Can you decode it? Rogers asked. Reed nodded slowly. I think so. It's based on mathematical principles. Give me a few minutes. They watched as she worked, the pattern gradually resolving into recognizable data. Finally, she looked up, her face showing surprise. It's a message, she said. A simple one, but clear. We wish to understand. Walker and Rogers exchanged looks. This was unprecedented. The swarm had never attempted communication before. They want to learn from us, Walker realized. We showed them that their way of thinking, their entire way of being, could be defeated. Now they want to understand how we think, how we fight. This could be a trap, Rogers warned. The swarm has never shown interest in diplomacy before. No, Walker agreed, but they've never been defeated before either. We didn't just win a battle today. We proved that their entire worldview was flawed. That's bound to cause some serious soul-searching, even in a hive mind. Reed was still studying the signal. There's more, she said. They're sending tactical data, battle analyses. It's like they're offering to exchange information. Rogers stroked his chin thoughtfully. An exchange of military knowledge with an enemy that just tried to destroy us. That's a risky proposition. Maybe, Walker said, watching as more swarm signals appeared on the screen. But think about it. We've just forced the most rigid, inflexible species we've ever encountered to completely reevaluate their way of thinking. That's not just a military victory. It could be the beginning of something much more important. As they discussed the implications, more ships arrived from Earth, beginning the process of securing the battlefield and salvaging what they could from the destroyed swarm vessels. The Thunderchild floated among them, battered but undefeated, a symbol of humanity's ability to overcome impossible odds through creativity and determination. The war wasn't over, but it had changed fundamentally. The swarm had learned fear, and from fear had come wisdom. Now they sought understanding, and perhaps in that understanding, both species could find a way forward that didn't end in mutual destruction. 6 months had passed since the legendary battle, and Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Captain Walker stood at the window of the newly constructed peace station, watching as ships from both human and swarm fleets moved in careful, coordinated patterns around the massive structure. The station hung in space at the exact coordinates where the Thunderchild had made its desperate last stand. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Dr. Reed said, coming to stand beside him. Her uniform now bore the insignia of the Joint Species Research Division, an organization that hadn't existed half a year ago. Every day, Walker agreed, watching as a swarm ship docked at one of the station's specialized berths. The aliens had modified their vessels with mechanical components that allowed them to interface with human technology. It was just one of countless adaptations they had made since the battle. The memorial ceremony starts in an hour, Reed reminded him. Admiral Rogers wants you to say a few words. Walker nodded. The station itself was part memorial, part research center, and part diplomatic headquarters. Today marked the official signing of the first Human Swarm Cooperation Treaty, on the anniversary of the battle that had changed everything. "How's the translation project coming?" he asked as they walked through the station's curved corridors. Reed's face lit up with excitement. "Fascinating progress. We've moved beyond simple mathematical concepts. The swarm representatives can now express complex ideas about their society. Did you know they don't even have a concept for individual achievement? Everything is measured by how it benefits the collective. That explains why our victory hit them so hard," Walker mused. One ship standing against their entire fleet went against everything they understood about how the universe works. They entered the station's central chamber, a vast space designed to accommodate both species comfortably. Human diplomats and officers mingled with swarm representatives, strange, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms and compound eyes that moved independently of each other. The aliens still communicated primarily through their neural network, but they had developed mechanical translators that converted their thoughts into spoken human languages. Admiral Rogers approached them, looking much less stressed than the last time Walker had seen him. "There you are," he said, "our guests of honor. The swarm delegates have been asking for you specifically, Captain." Walker raised an eyebrow. "Me? I'm the one who nearly wiped out their fleet." "Exactly," Rogers replied with a smile. "You're something of a celebrity among them. They've even created a new word in their language that translates roughly to the one who showed the way through defeat. They consider you a teacher." Reed leaned forward, always the scientist. "You changed your entire neural network structure based on one battle." "Yes," the translator confirmed. "Old network, all think same. New network, some think different, bring new ideas to collective. Like your ship crew, different skills, different thoughts, stronger together." Walker realized what the alien was saying. "You've restructured your entire society based on what you learned from us. You're encouraging individual thinking within your collective." "Dangerous," the swarm commander acknowledged. "Difficult, but necessary for survival. Your ship showed weakness in our way." Rogers looked impressed. and it only took you 6 months to implement these changes across your entire species. That would be impossible for humans. Different biology, different society, the translator explained. But slow for us. Much resistance from old patterns. Many believe defeat was error, not lesson. Your word, Civil War. First, in swarm history, change side 1. This was new information for the humans present. They hadn't realized that the swarm had gone through internal conflict during the months of silence after the battle. The treaty signing proceeded smoothly after that revelation. Both sides agreed to establish permanent communication channels, exchange technological innovations with peaceful applications, and create joint defense protocols against potential new threats to either species. As the ceremony concluded, Walker found himself back at the observation window, looking out at the stars. Reed joined him again, holding 2 glasses of champagne. 2 impossible victories, she said, handing him one. And unexpected consequences, he added, clinking his glass against hers. They watched as swarm and human ships conducted joint maneuvers in the space around the station. The aliens had abandoned their old attack patterns completely, instead adopting hybrid formations that combined their natural coordination with human-inspired tactical flexibility. You know what the most remarkable thing is, Reed said after a moment. 6 months ago, we destroyed half their fleet and sent them running in terror. Now they're implementing our organizational strategies across their entire civilization. Can you imagine if humans were that adaptable? Walker smiled. We adapt in our own way. Look at us now, working alongside the enemy that nearly wiped us out. That takes a special kind of adaptability. Beyond the station, Earth gleamed like a blue jewel. The planet had been transformed by the events of the past 6 months. Defense technology had advanced rapidly as engineers studied and improved upon the Thunderchild's experimental systems. The economy was booming as swarm biological technology was carefully integrated into human manufacturing. And for the first time in decades, there was a sense of unified purpose among the nations of Earth. The battle had started with mass panic, the swarm fleeing in terror from one human ship's impossible victory. But that panic had transformed into something else entirely. Not surrender, not resentment, but growth. 2 entirely different forms of intelligence learning from each other, becoming stronger through the exchange. The Thunderchild is almost repaired, Reed mentioned. They're turning her into a diplomatic vessel. First mission launches next month. A human swarm expedition to explore beyond both our territories. They want you to command it. Walker looked at her, surprised. Me? I'm a warship captain, not a diplomat. Reed laughed. You're the human who taught the swarm to think differently. I can't think of anyone better qualified to lead us into whatever comes next. As they stood there, watching the stars, Walker thought about how one desperate battle had changed the course of 2 civilizations. Humanity had proven its worth against overwhelming odds, and in doing so, had given an entire alien species a new way of thinking. Not bad for one day's work. The stars twinkled coldly against the vast darkness of space as the transport shuttle approached Outpost Epsilon. Commander Tom Reed gazed out of the viewport, watching as the massive space station grew larger. The station hung like a metal spider at the edge of known space, its 8 docking arms extending outward from a central hub that glowed with artificial light. Approaching final docking sequence, Commander, said the pilot. Outpost Epsilon has cleared us for Arm 3. Tom nodded, gathering his personal tablet and bag. After 6 months of routine patrols in the inner systems, he was not thrilled to be sent to this remote outpost. The United Earth Alliance rarely stationed senior officers at the edge of explored space unless something important was happening. The shuttle shuddered slightly as magnetic clamps locked onto the hull. A mechanical voice announced that it was safe to disembark, and Tom made his way to the exit. As the airlock doors slid open, the familiar smell of recycled air mixed with machine oil greeted him, the universal scent of space stations everywhere. A young officer stood waiting, snapping to attention as Tom stepped through. Commander Reed, welcome to Outpost Epsilon. I'm Lieutenant Davis. Admiral Gordon has asked me to escort you to the command center immediately." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Immediately? I haven't even been assigned quarters yet." "The Admiral was very clear, sir. He said it's urgent." Something was definitely off. Tom followed the lieutenant through the crowded main concourse. Outpost Epsilon was busier than he had expected. The station had been built as a trading hub, creating a neutral ground where humans could exchange goods with the various alien species from nearby systems. As they walked, Tom noticed an unusual number of aliens huddled in small groups, their voices low and expressions concerned, at least among the species whose expressions he could read. "What's going on, Lieutenant?" "The station seems tense." Davis hesitated before responding. "There's been a discovery, sir. A big one. But I think the Admiral should be the one to brief you." The command center was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Screens displayed star charts and what appeared to be scan data of a large object. Admiral Gordon, a stout man with silver hair and a perpetually serious expression, spotted Tom and waved him over. "Reed, good to see you. Sorry to rush you in like this, but we have a situation that can't wait." The Admiral gestured to the largest screen. 3 days ago, a mining vessel detected an anomalous object in Sector 47, just beyond the Arcturus belt. Initial scans suggested it was an asteroid, but when they approached, he tapped a control, and the image zoomed in to reveal what was clearly an artificial structure. Tom leaned closer. "That's a ship." "Yes, and based on our preliminary analysis, it's ancient. The miners reported it to us immediately, and we've had science teams scanning it remotely since then." The Admiral's face was grim. "Reed, we need someone to lead a team to investigate this vessel, and you're the most qualified officer within reach. What do we know about it so far?" A woman stepped forward from a nearby console. She had dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and wore the blue uniform of the Science Division. "Dr. Lisa Mercer, Commander. I've been analyzing the scan data. The ship appears to be at least 30,000 years old, possibly much older. It's approximately 2 kilometers in length with a design unlike anything in our records or the shared galactic database, and despite its age, it shows minimal structural damage." Tom frowned. "That's impossible. No material can withstand that much time in space without degradation." "That's what makes this discovery so significant," Dr. Mercer replied. "The hull appears to be composed of an unknown alloy that our scanners can't properly identify. And there's something else." She hesitated. "We've detected extremely faint energy readings from within the ship. It may still have functioning systems." Admiral Gordon crossed his arms. "We need to investigate this immediately. The technology on that ship could be decades or even centuries beyond our current capabilities. I'm authorizing a full exploration mission, and I want you to lead it, Reed." "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning. Dr. Mercer will accompany you as science officer, along with the security team and engineering specialists." The Admiral lowered his voice. "There's one more thing you should know. Word about this discovery has spread among the alien traders, and they're concerned." "Concerned how?" Dr. Mercer exchanged glances with the Admiral before answering. "Some of the species here, particularly the Arcadians and Volith, are claiming the ship matches descriptions from their ancient myths. They're calling it the Harbinger and warning us not to approach it." Tom couldn't help but scoff. "Superstitions. Perhaps," Admiral Gordon said carefully. "But several alien delegations have formally requested that we leave the ship alone." The Volith representative was particularly adamant, claiming that disturbing the vessel would bring catastrophe. "With all due respect, Admiral, we can't base military decisions on alien folk tales." "Agreed. Which is why you're leaving tomorrow." The Admiral handed Tom a data chip. "Here's all the information we've gathered so far. Review it and select your team members from the station personnel. The exploration vessel Horizon has been prepared for your mission." After the briefing, Tom found his assigned quarters and began reviewing the mission data. The ship was truly remarkable. a massive warship by all appearances, with what looked like weapon emplacements along its hull. The design was elegant and streamlined, unlike the bulky, practical vessels of current spacefaring civilizations. A chime at his door interrupted his study. "Enter," he called. The door slid open to reveal an Arcadian trader. The alien was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, solid black eyes. It wore the traditional flowing robes of its species, covered in intricate patterns. "Commander Reed," the Arcadian said in the slightly musical accent typical of its kind. "I am Trell, representative of the Arcadian Merchant Guild. May I speak with you?" Tom was surprised but gestured to a chair. "Of course. What can I do for you?" Trell remained standing, his posture rigid. "I understand you will lead the mission to the ancient vessel. I have come to personally urge you to reconsider." "And why is that?" "The ship you have found matches descriptions of a vessel from our oldest historical records. We call it Khazar, the Doombringer." Trell's large eyes blinked slowly. "According to our histories, such ships brought great destruction in the time before stars had names." Tom tried to keep his expression neutral. "Your concern is noted, but we have orders to investigate. Commander, this is not mere superstition. Many species share similar legends of these vessels. The stories say they contain wonders beyond understanding, but awakening them brings the attention of something worse." Trell leaned forward. "Our ancestors left very specific warnings. Some knowledge is best left undisturbed. I appreciate your concern, but I have my orders." Trell straightened. "Then I must inform you that all Arcadian merchants will be departing this station before your mission launches. The Volith and Neridians are doing the same." The alien moved toward the door, but paused. "Commander, if you find inscriptions or symbols resembling crescent moons joined by lightning, do not activate them. That is the mark of the weapon systems, according to our texts." After Trell left, Tom returned to his data review. Though the Arcadian's warning lingered in his mind, the alien exodus from the station continued through the night. By morning, nearly 40% of the non-human population had departed on various vessels. The exploration team gathered at Docking Arm 5 where the Horizon waited. Dr. Mercer was already aboard, directing the loading of scientific equipment. Tom was introduced to Jack Wilson, the chief engineer assigned to the mission, a stocky man with calloused hands and a skeptical expression. "Heard about the alien panic," Wilson said as they watched the final preparations. "Think there's anything to their warnings?" Tom shrugged. "Probably just cultural taboos about disturbing ancient sites. We've seen it before." "Maybe," Wilson replied, not sounding convinced. "But I've been stationed here 3 years. Never seen the Volith scared of anything before." The 12-person team completed boarding, and Tom took his place on the bridge. As the Horizon detached from the station and set course for the coordinates of the ancient ship, he noticed several alien vessels departing in the opposite direction, as if fleeing. The journey to the derelict took just under 10 hours. When they finally approached, even Tom had to admit it was an impressive sight. The massive warship hung motionless against the backdrop of distant stars, its dark hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. It was shaped like an elongated arrowhead with sweeping, elegant lines that suggested both speed and power. "Scan complete," announced the sensor operator. "No signs of active defenses or shields. Atmosphere within the ship is minimal but present in some sections. Temperature is just above absolute zero." "Life signs?" Tom asked. "None detected, sir." Dr. Mercer studied her own readings. "The energy signature we detected from the station is stronger now. It appears to be coming from deep within the central section of the vessel. Can we dock directly?" Wilson shook his head. "I wouldn't recommend it. We can't interface with their systems, and cutting through the hull might trigger automated defenses. Better to use the exploration pods and enter through what appears to be a hangar bay on the lower section." Tom nodded. "Agreed. Dr. Mercer, you'll come with me in the first pod along with 2 security officers. Wilson, you'll lead the second pod with the remaining team." As they suited up in the heavy exploration gear, Dr. Mercer approached Tom privately. "Commander, I've been analyzing the symbols on the ship's hull. Some of them bear a striking resemblance to ancient script fragments found on Earth, specifically markings from the pre-Sumerian period that scholars have never been able to decipher." Tom frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not sure yet," she replied. "But it's a connection we shouldn't ignore." The exploration pods launched from the horizon, tiny against the massive scale of the ancient warship. As they approached the hangar bay, Tom felt a growing sense of unease. The entrance was large enough to accommodate vessels much bigger than their pods, and as they passed through the outer barrier, emergency lights automatically activated their exploration suits. "That's odd." Wilson's voice came through the comm. "Something's responding to our presence." The pods landed in the vast, empty hangar. As the teams exited into the cold stillness of the ancient ship, their helmet lights cut through darkness that hadn't been disturbed for millennia. Tom looked around at the cavernous space, feeling suddenly very small. Along the walls, strange symbols began to glow with a faint blue light. "Commander," Dr. Mercer said quietly, "I think the ship is waking up." The glowing symbols on the walls brightened as Tom and his team moved deeper into the ancient ship. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors, the sound swallowed by the vastness around them. Dr. Mercer ran her scanner over the walls, her face lit by both her helmet light and the soft blue glow from the strange markings. "These symbols are responding to our presence," she said, excitement clear in her voice despite the crackling comm. "They're not just decorative. They're functional. Some kind of technology integrated directly into the ship's structure." Tom touched one of the glowing marks cautiously. It pulsed brighter at his touch, but felt neither warm nor cold. "Any idea what they mean?" "Not yet, but they bear similarities to scripts found in ancient ruins on Earth and 3 other worlds. The pattern suggests they might be a universal language of sorts." Wilson, who had been examining what appeared to be a sealed doorway, called out, "Commander, I think I've found a main access corridor. The architecture suggests it leads toward the center of the ship." The team gathered at the sealed door. It was massive, easily 15 feet tall, with a complex pattern of the same glowing symbols arranged in concentric circles around its center. Wilson studied the door with his engineering scanner. "No obvious opening mechanism," he reported. "No sign of power circuits or mechanical locks either, at least none that match anything in our database." Dr. Mercer stepped forward, her attention focused on a particular cluster of symbols near what might be considered eye level for a human. "These symbols are different. They're pulsing in a pattern." She reached out toward them. "Doctor, I wouldn't," Tom began, but she had already placed her hand on the glowing marks. The symbols flared brightly under her touch. A low humming filled the air, and the massive door began to slide open with surprising smoothness, revealing a long corridor beyond. Lights activated automatically along the ceiling as the door opened, illuminating a path forward. "It responded to human touch," Dr. Mercer said quietly, "just like the legends the aliens mentioned." One of the security officers, Burns, shifted uncomfortably. Maybe there was something to those warnings after all. Tom made a quick decision. "We continue as planned. Stay alert and document everything. Wilson, keep a constant signal back to the horizon. If we lose contact for any reason, they're to pull back to a safe distance and contact Outpost Epsilon." The corridor stretched ahead for hundreds of meters, curving gently to follow the ship's hull. As they walked, more systems seemed to activate around them. Panels that had been dark for millennia lit up with scrolling symbols. The temperature began to rise slightly, suggesting environmental systems were powering up. "The ship is definitely reacting to us," Wilson said, checking his instruments. "Power levels are increasing throughout this entire section. It's like it's waking up after a long sleep." Dr. Mercer stopped suddenly, pointing to a section of wall that was different from the others. Instead of metal, this panel appeared to be made of a clear crystal-like material. Behind it lay what looked like a command center, with seats positioned before curved consoles. "This must be a control room of some kind," she said. "The design suggests it was meant for humanoid operators." As they examined the crystal barrier, it suddenly turned transparent, and a door-sized section slid aside, granting them access. The team hesitated, looking to Tom for direction. "Proceed, but with caution," he ordered. "Nothing touches any controls without my direct approval." The control room was surprisingly human in scale and design. The seats were clearly meant for beings of approximately human size and shape. The consoles, while alien in their details, followed an intuitive layout that suggested displays and input areas. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, but otherwise seemed perfectly preserved. "This doesn't make sense," Wilson muttered as he examined one of the consoles. "This technology looks advanced, but the ergonomics are almost perfectly suited for humans. What are the odds of that?" Dr. Mercer was already scanning everything in sight, her expression intense with concentration. "The coincidence is statistically improbable unless—" She stopped, staring at her scanner. "Commander, you need to see this." Tom moved to her side. "What is it?" "I'm detecting trace DNA on these controls. Degraded after thousands of years, but still identifiable." She looked up, her eyes wide behind her helmet visor. "It's human DNA, or at least something nearly identical to human." A heavy silence fell over the team as they processed this information. "That's impossible," Burns said finally. "Humans weren't capable of space travel thousands of years ago, let alone building something like this. Unless everything we know about human history is wrong," Dr. Mercer replied quietly. Tom was about to respond when a deep vibration ran through the ship. The lights in the control room brightened, and the consoles suddenly activated, displays filling with scrolling symbols and diagrams. "What's happening?" Tom demanded, backing away from the nearest console. Wilson checked his scanner. Power surged throughout the ship. "Something's initializing the main systems, but we didn't touch anything." In the center of the room, a circular area that had seemed like a simple design element in the floor began to glow. Light streamed upward from it, coalescing into a humanoid shape about 7 feet tall. The figure was composed entirely of light, featureless except for a suggestion of a head and limbs. Dr. Mercer gasped. "It's some kind of hologram. An artificial intelligence interface, maybe." The light figure turned toward them, seeming to study each team member in turn. When it spoke, the sound came from all around them. A deep, resonant voice that somehow bypassed their comms and seemed to speak directly into their minds. Genetic identification confirmed. Custodian descendants detected. Primary systems reactivation protocol initiated. The team exchanged bewildered glances. Tom stepped forward cautiously. "We are from the United Earth Alliance." "Who? What are you?" The light figure shifted, patterns flowing through its form. "This unit is designated Guardian, control interface for Custodian Warship Sentinel. This unit has remained in dormant status for 97,342 standard cycles, awaiting return of Custodian descendants." "Custodians?" Dr. Mercer asked. "What are custodians?" The custodians were the protectors, the seeders, the guardians against the void. The figure's light pulsed with each phrase. "You bear their genetic markers. You are their legacy." Wilson shook his head in disbelief. "It thinks we're descendants of whoever built this ship." "Are we?" Burns asked quietly. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded from Wilson's pack. He quickly checked his communications device. "Commander, the Horizon is sending an emergency signal. They've detected multiple ships approaching our position at high speed." Tom activated his comm. "Horizon, this is Commander Reed. Report status." The reply came through with static interference. "Commander, this is Horizon. We're tracking 8 vessels on intercept course, 3 Volith warships, 2 Arcadian cruisers, and 3 others we can't identify. They're broadcasting warnings for us to withdraw immediately. They're charging weapons, sir." "Have they made direct threats?" "Not yet, sir, but they're demanding we abandon the ancient ship. The Volith commander is claiming we've activated something dangerous. Sir, they seem genuinely afraid. Tom looked at the glowing figure of Guardian, which stood motionless, waiting. The ship continued to awaken around them, more systems coming online with each passing minute. Horizon, maintain position but power up shields. Do not take any aggressive action. Understood, Commander. Wait, they are hailing us directly now. The communication channel filled with a harsh, clicking language that Tom recognized as Volith. After a moment, it switched to heavily accented human standard. Attention, human vessel. You have awakened the Harbinger. You must withdraw immediately. The ancient weapon must not be fully activated or all will suffer. This is your only warning. Tom looked to Dr. Mercer, who was still scanning the holographic Guardian. Doctor, what exactly have we awakened here? She shook her head. I'm not sure, but from what I can gather from these readings, this ship contains technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. The energy readings are off the charts, and there appear to be weapons systems that could easily outmatch anything in the Alliance fleet. Guardian's glowing form shifted. Threat detected. Defensive protocols initiating. Shield generators powering to combat status. Wait, Tom called out. We don't want to start a conflict. The visitors outside represent no significant threat, Guardian stated calmly. Their weapons cannot penetrate this vessel's defenses. However, their presence is noted. Query. Do you wish me to neutralize them? No, Tom said firmly. Absolutely not. Abort any offensive measures. Acknowledged. Defensive measures only will be maintained. Wilson approached Tom, lowering his voice. Commander, I think we need to consider the possibility that the aliens weren't just being superstitious. This ship is clearly a highly advanced weapons platform, and it's responding to us specifically because of our DNA. That can't be a coincidence. Tom nodded grimly. Doctor, what else can you tell us about these custodians the AI mentioned? Dr. Mercer was already interfacing her scanner with one of the consoles. I'm accessing the ship's historical database now. It's massive. There's enough information here to rewrite everything we know about human origins. She looked up, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. Commander, according to this data, humans didn't evolve naturally on Earth. We were placed there by the custodians. That's absurd, Burns interjected. Is it? Dr. Mercer challenged. Think about it. This ship is clearly designed for beings with our exact physical proportions. It responds to our DNA. And now we have an AI telling us we're descendants of its creators. She turned back to her scanner. The database says the custodians were an advanced race that seeded compatible worlds with their genetic material after some kind of catastrophic war. Earth was apparently one of those worlds. A sudden shudder ran through the ship. Guardian's form flickered momentarily. Warning. External vessels are attempting to breach hull integrity with energy weapons. Shields holding at 99.8% capacity. No damage detected. Tom activated his comm again. Horizon, what's happening out there? Commander, the alien fleet has opened fire on the ancient ship. But sir, their weapons don't seem to be having any effect. Some kind of energy shield has activated around the entire vessel. Another tremor shook the ship, stronger this time. They're escalating their attack, Wilson observed. Why would they risk attacking something so obviously superior to their own technology? Because they're terrified of it, Tom realized. Whatever this ship was built to fight against must be worse than anything they can imagine. Guardian's light form pulsed. The ship's systems are now at 42% operational capacity. Main navigation and historical archives are online. Weapon systems remain in standby mode. Query. What are your instructions, custodian descendants? Tom looked at his team. Then back to the hologram. First, I want to know exactly what this ship was built for. What is the void you mentioned earlier? Guardian's form darkened slightly. The void is the ancient enemy, the consumer of worlds, the darkness between stars. They came from outside, and they sought to devour all sentient life. The custodians fought them across 1,000 systems. This vessel is one of 50 created to stand against the final incursion. Dr. Mercer looked up from her scanner, her face pale. Commander, according to these records, the custodians didn't just seed Earth with their DNA as a scientific experiment. They were creating a backup, insurance that their lineage would survive even if they lost the war. And did they lose? Tom asked Guardian. Unknown. Communication with Custodian Command ceased 97,342 cycles ago. This unit entered dormant status as programmed, awaiting genetic descendants to continue the mission. Another violent shudder ran through the ship. Commander, Wilson said urgently, we need to make a decision. Either we shut this ship down and leave, or we commit to understanding what it is and why it was built. But those aliens out there aren't going to stop attacking, and I don't think this Guardian is going to let us leave now that we've activated the primary systems. Tom looked around at the awakening warship, a vessel built by what might be humanity's true ancestors, created to fight a war against an enemy so terrible that even the memory of it frightened spacefaring civilizations thousands of years later. Guardian, he said finally, why has this ship awakened now, after all this time? The light figure seemed to grow more intense. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures consistent with void activity at the edge of this galaxy. Dormancy protocol was terminated. The cycle begins again. Tom stared at Guardian, trying to process the enormous implications of what the AI had just revealed. The void is returning. You're saying this enemy that nearly destroyed all life thousands of years ago is coming back? Affirmative. Initial void signatures have been detected in the Drexler sector, approximately 237 light-years from this position. Current estimate suggests first contact with populated worlds will occur within 6.4 standard months. Dr. Mercer looked up from the console she had been studying. Commander, I found visual records of these void entities. She tapped a series of symbols, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the control room. The image showed what appeared to be normal space, with stars visible against the darkness. Then something moved. It wasn't a ship or any recognizable object. It was as if the darkness itself was flowing, gathering, becoming somehow more dense than the emptiness around it. As they watched, the darkness formed tendrils that reached toward a small planet in the recording. Where those tendrils touched the planet's atmosphere, the air itself seemed to decay, turning gray and lifeless. The void consumes energy in all forms, Guardian explained as they watched in horror. Biological, electrical, nuclear, gravitational, all is taken to feed its growth. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be appeased. It exists only to consume. And the custodians fought this? Wilson asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The custodians were the only species with technology advanced enough to resist the void's consumption. They created barriers, weapons, and eventually, this network of sentinel ships to contain the incursion. Tom turned away from the horrifying image. Guardian, you said the void signatures were detected at the edge of the galaxy. How long before it reaches populated systems? At observed expansion rates, approximately 194 days until first contact with inhabited worlds. And this ship, what exactly is its purpose? How was it meant to fight this thing? Guardian's light form shifted, expanding to create a three-dimensional model of the ship around them. Specific sections lit up as it spoke. This vessel contains three primary defense systems against the void. First, the barrier generators. A section near the ship's core glowed brighter. These create energy fields that the void cannot penetrate or consume. Second, the purification beams. What appeared to be weapon emplacements along the hull illuminated. These can excise void matter from normal space, forcing it back to its home dimension. Third, the seed network. Small points throughout the ship's structure lit up. These enable the creation of a galactic shield network when combined with the other 49 Sentinel ships. Dr. Mercer looked up from her scanner. This technology is incredible. The power requirements alone would be beyond anything we can currently produce. This vessel is powered by a controlled singularity core, Guardian stated. It can operate at full capacity for approximately 15,000 standard years before requiring refueling. A sudden explosion rocked the ship. Guardian's form flickered momentarily. Warning. The attacking vessels have modified their weapons to attempt shield penetration. Shield efficiency reduced to 97.3%. No critical damage detected. They're getting more desperate, Tom said. We need to communicate with them, make them understand the situation. Guardian turned its featureless face toward Tom. They already understand. Their ancestors witnessed the last Void War. The knowledge has been preserved in their cultural memory, though much has been lost or distorted over time. They fear this ship because they know its purpose, but they do not understand that it represents salvation, not destruction. Tom activated his comlink. Horizon, this is Commander Reed. I need a direct channel to the lead Volith vessel. After a moment of static, a harsh, clicking voice came through, translated by the ship's systems. Human Commander, you have awakened death. Shut down the Harbinger, or we will destroy your support vessel. This is Commander Reed. We've discovered information about the ship and the threat it was built to fight. The Void is returning, the ancient enemy your people remember in their myths. This ship is a weapon against it, not a threat to you. There was a long pause before the Volith responded. Deception. The Harbinger brings the darkness. All records are clear. Dr. Mercer had been scrolling through the ship's historical database. She looked up suddenly. Commander, I think I understand the confusion. According to these records, when the Void first appeared, many species believed the custodian ships were causing the phenomenon, not fighting it. The ships would appear just before Void incursions because they detected them coming. Tom nodded and returned to the communication. Volith Commander, your ancestors misunderstood. These ships were built to fight the darkness, not bring it. They appeared before the darkness came because they detected it approaching. We have proof in the ship's historical records. Words mean nothing. The Harbinger must be destroyed before it is fully awakened. Guardian interrupted. The attacking vessels are preparing to launch high-yield fusion weapons at your support ship. Such an attack will likely destroy it completely. Tom made a quick decision. Guardian, can you extend the shields to protect our support vessel without harming the alien ships? Affirmative. Extending defensive perimeter now. Outside, the energy shield surrounding the ancient warship expanded outward, encompassing the much smaller horizon. The Volith weapons fire impacted the shield harmlessly, energy dissipating across its surface in ripples of blue light. Their weapons cannot penetrate custodian defenses, Guardian stated. However, I detect 27 additional vessels approaching this position. Local species are gathering their fleets to attempt destruction of this sentinel. Tom turned to his team. We need to convince them we're telling the truth, and quickly. Burns, who had been quiet for some time, spoke up. Commander, if this ship has records of the Void and its attacks, can we share those with them? Visual evidence might convince them. Dr. Mercer nodded eagerly. The ship's communication systems should be capable of broadcasting data to their vessels. We could show them exactly what we've been seeing. Guardian, can you transmit the historical records of the Void attacks to the surrounding vessels? Affirmative. Preparing data package for transmission. Wilson had been examining one of the other consoles. Commander, I think I found something else that might help. This appears to be a navigation system, showing the locations of the other Sentinel ships. He gestured to a star map displayed on the console. Small points of light were scattered across it, most glowing dimly. According to this, there are other ships like this one in dormant status near several of the alien homeworlds. If they've preserved myths about this ship, they might recognize the others. Tom moved to examine the map. Guardian, are these other ships also awakening? Negative. This sentinel was positioned as an outer perimeter guard. It is the first to detect the returning void signatures. The other sentinels will not activate until they detect void presence or receive the awakening signal from this vessel. And what would happen if they received that signal? All dormant sentinels would begin reactivation procedures. They would seek out custodian descendants, humans, to complete their activation, then move to predetermined defensive positions throughout the galaxy. Dr. Mercer looked up from her console. "Commander, I've been reviewing more of the historical data. The custodians didn't just seed Earth with their DNA. There are references to at least 12 other worlds where they left populations. Some of those worlds are now home to major civilizations. Are you saying other species might also be descended from these custodians?" She shook her head. "No, the data is quite specific. Only humans on Earth retain the pure genetic markers. The other seeded populations either died out or evolved differently due to environmental pressures." Guardian's form brightened. "Message prepared for transmission to surrounding vessels. The data package contains historical records of the Void incursion, the Custodian Defense Network, and predictive models of the current Void expansion." "Send it," Tom ordered. The attacking ships ceased fire shortly after the transmission began. For several minutes, there was no response. Then, the communication channel activated again. "Human Commander." The Volith's voice sounded different now, subdued, perhaps even fearful. "The images you have shared, they match our oldest records. The darkness that consumes. If what you say is true, if the Harbinger fights against this darkness rather than bringing it." "It's true," Tom confirmed. "And according to the ship's sensors, we have less than 6 months before the Void reaches populated systems. This ship, this Sentinel, is part of a network built to defend all life in the galaxy." Another voice joined the channel, the musical tones of an Arcadian. "The records you have shared show monuments on our homeworld. Structures we believe were built by the ancestors. They are identical to your images of custodian architecture." "The custodians visited many worlds," Guardian stated, its voice now broadcasting to all surrounding ships. "They built outposts, research facilities, and monuments across the galaxy. When they realized the Void could not be permanently defeated, they created the Sentinel Network as a final defense and seeded selected worlds with their genetic material to ensure their legacy would survive." The Volith spoke again. "If the darkness returns as you claim, our weapons will be useless against it. Even our combined fleets could not stand against what your records show. That's why the Sentinels were built," Tom explained. "But according to Guardian, they need human operators to fully activate. The custodians designed them to recognize their own DNA that now exists only in humans from Earth." There was a long pause before the Volith responded. "We will cease our attack. We must consult with our elders and other species. If the ancient enemy truly returns, old fears must be set aside." As the communication ended, Tom turned to his team. "We need to report this to Earth immediately. The Alliance needs to understand what we're facing and what this ship represents." Wilson shook his head in disbelief. "How do we explain to Earth Command that humans are apparently the descendants of an ancient advanced civilization, and that we're the only ones who can operate a network of superweapons needed to save the galaxy from a cosmic horror?" "We show them exactly what we've seen," Tom replied grimly. "And we pray they believe us faster than the aliens did." Dr. Mercer looked thoughtful. "Commander, there's something else to consider. If humans are truly custodian descendants, and if these sentinels were designed specifically to respond to our DNA, this could completely redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. We wouldn't just be newcomers to interstellar politics. We'd be heirs to the most advanced civilization ever known." Tom nodded slowly. "And suddenly responsible for defending everyone against a threat most humans have never even heard of." He turned to Guardian. "How much time would it take to fully activate all the sentinels in the network?" "With sufficient human operators at each location, approximately 62 days. However, optimal defense positioning requires a minimum of 87 days of preparation. And we have less than 194 days before the void arrives. Tom closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the situation. When he opened them, he had made his decision. Doctor, download everything you can from the ship's database. Wilson, I want a complete technical assessment of what would be needed to crew this vessel. We're returning to Outpost Epsilon immediately to make our report. As they prepared to depart, Guardian's light form approached Tom. Commander Reed of Earth, you now bear the responsibility that the custodians planned for their descendants. The survival of all sentient life depends on humanity assuming its intended role as guardians of this galaxy. Are you prepared for this burden? Tom looked at the holographic figure, thinking of Earth, a planet that had no idea it was about to be thrust into the center of a cosmic war thousands of years in the making. We don't have a choice, he replied. Humanity will have to be ready. The journey back to Outpost Epsilon was tense and silent. Tom sat in the shuttle, reviewing the data Dr. Mercer had downloaded from the Sentinel ship's archives. The scope of what they'd discovered was almost too enormous to comprehend. Humanity's true origins, an ancient cosmic enemy, and a desperate last plan put in motion thousands of years ago by their advanced ancestors. As the shuttle docked with the station, Tom was surprised to see Admiral Gordon waiting for them at the airlock, his expression grave. Commander Reed, your report was difficult to believe. Tom nodded. I understand, sir. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't believe it either. The alien fleets have been contacting us nonstop since your transmission. The station is currently surrounded by 37 vessels from 14 different species. Some are offering alliance, others demanding we destroy the ancient ship. The Admiral gestured for them to follow him. The Alliance Council has called an emergency session. They're waiting to speak with you now. Tom glanced at Dr. Mercer and Wilson, who looked as exhausted as he felt. Now, sir, we've barely had time to organize our findings. The Council doesn't want organized findings, Commander. They want to know if we're truly facing an apocalyptic threat in less than 6 months, and if our only hope is a fleet of ancient warships that only humans can operate. The Admiral's voice dropped lower. And they want to know why we weren't told that humans are apparently descendants of the most advanced species the galaxy has ever known. Because we didn't know either, sir. They were led to the station's main conference room, which had been converted into a makeshift council chamber. Large screens dominated one wall, each showing the face of a different Alliance Council member. These were the most powerful humans in explored space, military leaders, colonial governors, and Earth representatives. All of them were staring at Tom and his team with expressions ranging from skepticism to outright fear. Council President Maxwell, a stern woman with silver hair, spoke first. Commander Reed, we've reviewed your preliminary report and the data you transmitted. Before we proceed, I need to hear directly from you. Do you stand by these claims? That this void entity is real and approaching our territory? Tom stepped forward. Madam President, members of the Council, everything in my report is accurate to the best of my knowledge. The ancient ship contains extensive historical records of the previous void incursion. Its sensors have detected new void activity at the edge of our galaxy. And yes, according to the ship's AI, we have less than 6 months before it reaches populated systems. And this business about humans being descendants of these custodians, asked General Harris, his bushy eyebrows drawn together in a frown. You expect us to believe our entire understanding of human evolution is wrong? Dr. Mercer moved to Tom's side. Sir, the evidence is compelling. The ship responds specifically to human DNA. Its systems, controls, and even the physical dimensions of its interior are perfectly suited for human operators. The historical archives contain detailed genetic records showing the direct link between custodians and modern humans. A council member Tom didn't recognize leaned forward on her screen. Doctor, if what you're saying is true, why hasn't this connection been discovered before now? Surely in all our archaeological research. The custodians were careful, Dr. Mercer explained. According to the records, they erased most evidence of their presence on Earth. They wanted humans to develop naturally, without the burden of knowing they were created as a fail-safe against a cosmic horror. They left only enough clues for us to recognize the connection when we reached a sufficient technological level. The chamber fell silent as the council members digested this information. Finally, President Maxwell spoke again. "What about these other Sentinel ships? The report mentions 49 others scattered throughout the galaxy." Tom nodded. "Currently dormant, but they can be activated remotely from the ship we discovered. Each requires human operators to function at full capacity. And you believe these ships are our only defense against this void entity?" "Based on the historical records, yes. Conventional weapons had no effect on it. Only the technology developed by the custodians was effective." Admiral Gordon, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. "Madam President, members of the Council, while Commander Reed and his team were returning to the station, we received transmissions from 17 different alien governments. Most of them are familiar with legends about both the Sentinel ships and the Void. They're taking this threat very seriously." "Of course they are," General Harris snorted. "If the only defense requires human operators, they need us now. Convenient for species that have treated humanity as galactic newcomers for generations." "With respect, General," Tom said carefully, "their fear seems genuine. The Volith were willing to destroy our ship to prevent the Sentinel from activating. That suggests they truly believed the threat was real." President Maxwell rubbed her temples. "Commander Reed, in your opinion, what should our next steps be?" Tom had been considering this question since they left the Sentinel. "We need to secure the first Sentinel ship immediately. Then we need to begin locating and activating the others. According to Guardian, the ship's eye, we need to have the full network operational within 3 months to have any chance of stopping the Void. That would require sending human crews to 49 locations across the galaxy," a council member pointed out. "Many of those would be deep in alien territory, which is why we need to begin diplomatic negotiations immediately," Tom replied. "The alien fleets gathered here represent our first potential allies. If their ancient records contain information about the locations of other Sentinels, that could save us valuable time." Dr. Mercer stepped forward again. "Council members, I should also point out that the Sentinel's database contains technology far beyond our current capabilities. Medical advancements, energy production, FTL drive systems, knowledge that could advance human development by centuries." This caught their attention. Several council members leaned forward with renewed interest. "You believe we can access and understand this technology?" President Maxwell asked. "The ship was designed to be operated by humans," Dr. Mercer replied. "Its systems are intuitive to us in a way they aren't to other species. Guardian, the AI, is also programmed to teach custodian descendants how to use the technology." The council fell into discussion among themselves, their voices overlapping as they debated. Tom glanced at Wilson, who gave him a tired smile. From engineers on a routine exploration mission to humanity's last hope against cosmic horror, Wilson muttered, "Quite a promotion." After several minutes, President Maxwell raised her hand for silence. "We've reached a preliminary decision. Commander Reed, you will return to the Sentinel ship with an expanded team of specialists. Your mission is to secure the vessel, learn everything possible about its systems, and prepare for the activation of the other Sentinels." She paused, her expression grave. "However, we will not yet inform the general public about the Void threat. The potential for panic is too great, especially given the time frame. This operation will be classified at the highest level." Tom frowned. "Madam President, with respect, we'll need resources from across human territory to properly staff 49 Sentinel ships. That can't be done in secret." "We'll develop a cover story as needed," she replied dismissively. "For now, only those with direct involvement will be informed." Admiral Gordon cleared his throat. "Madam President, there's another matter to consider. The alien fleets surrounding this station are demanding information. They know something significant has been discovered. If we attempt to keep this classified, It could lead to interspecies conflict at precisely the time we need cooperation. The President considered this, then nodded reluctantly. You make a fair point, Admiral. Very well, you are authorized to begin preliminary discussions with the alien representatives. Emphasize our willingness to cooperate against this common threat, but make no specific commitments without Council approval. She turned back to Tom. Commander Reed, given your first-hand experience with the Sentinel ship and its AI, you will lead this mission. Dr. Mercer will continue as Chief Science Officer. Admiral Gordon will coordinate from Outpost Epsilon and serve as diplomatic liaison with our alien allies. As the meeting concluded, Tom and his team were dismissed to prepare for their return to the Sentinel ship. In the corridor outside, Admiral Gordon pulled Tom aside. The Council is terrified, he said quietly, not just of this void thing, but of what this means for humanity's place in the galaxy. If what you discovered is true, every aspect of human history needs to be reconsidered. Tom nodded. I know, sir. I'm still processing it myself. The aliens are scared too, but for different reasons. The Arcadian ambassador told me their oldest legends call this time the Awakening, when the Guardian race would return to fight the darkness. The Admiral's eyes were troubled. Their legends also say that not all would survive the coming battle. Before Tom could respond, his communication device beeped. It was a message from the team monitoring the Sentinel ship. Commander Reed, the Sentinel is showing increased power signatures. Its systems are continuing to activate on their own. And sir, it's broadcasting some kind of signal. Tom exchanged alarmed glances with the Admiral. What kind of signal? Unknown, sir, but it's directed toward the coordinates where Guardian indicated the void has been detected. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. I'm returning to the ship immediately. Have a shuttle ready in 10 minutes. As Tom hurried to gather his team, he found Dr. Mercer already reviewing data on her tablet, her expression grim. What is it, Doctor? She looked up, her face pale. I've been analyzing the void detection data from the Sentinel. The readings are increasing exponentially. It's as if the void is accelerating toward our region of space. Guardian said we had about 6 months. That calculation was based on the initial detection. According to these new readings, she swallowed hard. We might have less than 3 months before first contact with inhabited systems. Wilson joined them, his usual practical demeanor now deadly serious. The engineering team reports the Sentinel's weapon systems are powering up. Not to full capacity yet, but they're definitely preparing for something. Tom made a quick decision. We need to get back to the ship now. If its systems are activating automatically, something has changed. He turned to Dr. Mercer. Bring everything you have on the Sentinel network. We may need to accelerate the timeline for awakening the other ships. As they hurried toward the shuttle bay, Tom's mind raced with the implications. Humanity had spent its existence looking up at the stars, wondering if they were alone in the universe. Now they discovered they were the descendants of its most advanced civilization, created specifically to be the last line of defense against an unimaginable horror. The shuttle detached from the station and accelerated toward the ancient warship. As they approached, Tom could see that the Sentinel's appearance had changed. What had been a dark, dormant hulk was now alive, with patterns of light moving across its hull. The symbols they had seen inside the ship were now visible on its exterior, glowing with blue-white energy. It's beautiful, Dr. Mercer whispered. And terrifying, Tom added. It's a weapon designed to fight something that consumes whole worlds. And now it's waking up because that enemy is returning. The shuttle entered the Sentinel's hangar bay, which was now fully illuminated and humming with energy. Guardian was waiting for them, its light form now more defined, almost solid in appearance. Commander Reed, you have returned at a critical time. The void has detected this Sentinel's activation. It has changed course and is accelerating toward this region of space. Tom felt his blood run cold. You said we had 6 months. That assessment has been revised based on new data. The void appears to recognize the threat the Sentinel network poses. It is now moving with purpose rather than simply expanding. How much time do we have? Guardian's form flickered slightly. 84 days until first contact with inhabited systems. However, we face a more immediate concern. The AI gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing a star map of nearby space. A dark, amorphous shape was visible at one edge, with tendrils extending outward. The void has sent an advance force, a smaller manifestation that appears to be targeting this sentinel specifically. Estimated arrival: 17 days. Tom stared at the holographic display, watching as the dark mass at the edge moved steadily toward their position. 17 days. That's not enough time to prepare. This advance force appears to be a scout, Guardian explained. It is smaller than a full void manifestation, but still dangerous. Its purpose is likely to assess the Sentinel's capabilities and, if possible, disable it before the main body arrives. Dr. Mercer studied the display intently. Can this ship defeat it alone? Affirmative, but only if fully operational. Current system status is at 68% capacity. Minimal human crew requirements must be met to achieve full operational status. Tom made a quick decision. What exactly do you need from us to reach full capacity? Guardian's form shifted, creating a schematic of the ship with several areas highlighted. This Sentinel requires 12 human operators in key positions to achieve full combat readiness. The primary command node must be occupied by a human with decision-making authority. The central area of the ship glowed brighter. Secondary systems require humans at 11 other control nodes throughout the vessel. We need to report this to the Council immediately, Tom said, turning to Wilson. Begin identifying the key systems that need operators. Doctor, I want you to continue analyzing the void data. Find any weakness, any pattern we can exploit. As Wilson and Dr. Mercer set to work, Tom established a secure communication link with Outpost Epsilon. Admiral Gordon's face appeared on the screen, his expression tense. Commander Reed, the Council is in emergency session. The alien fleets are reporting unusual readings from the direction of the Perseus Arm. Dark energy signatures that match their historical records of the void. We've detected it too, Admiral. Guardian says an advance force will reach us in 17 days. We need a crew of 12 humans to bring the Sentinel to full operational capacity. The Admiral's eyes widened. 17 days. That's... Commander, I'll send you every qualified person we have, but you should know the situation here is deteriorating. Some of the alien vessels are preparing to flee the sector entirely. Others are demanding we share access to the Sentinel technology. Tell them the technology won't work for them. It's genetically keyed to humans. They know that, the Admiral replied grimly, which is why 3 different species have proposed taking human volunteers to accompany their ships when they evacuate. Tom felt a cold anger building. We're facing extinction, and they're thinking about kidnapping humans as technology operators. Not all of them. The Arcadians, and surprisingly, the Volith have offered military support. They're requesting permission to send representatives to your position to coordinate defense plans. Tom considered this briefly. Approved, but limited to 1 representative from each species. We don't have time for a committee meeting. After ending the communication, Tom found Guardian waiting for him. The AI's light form seemed somehow more solid, more defined than before. Commander Reed, while we prepare for the arrival of additional human operators, there is another matter requiring attention. The dormant Sentinels must be alerted to the Void's approach. You said they wouldn't activate until they detected the Void themselves. Correct, but by then it may be too late for proper defensive positioning. This Sentinel can transmit an awakening signal that will initiate preliminary activation sequences in all dormant Sentinels. They would then be ready to receive human operators when they arrive. Tom nodded. Do it. Send the signal. Guardian's form pulsed brightly. Awakening signal transmitted. Estimated response time varies by distance. Nearest Sentinels will begin activation within hours. Most distant units may require up to 12 days. The next 17 days passed in a blur of frantic activity. The Alliance sent 30 of their best officers and specialists to the Sentinel, though Guardian confirmed that only 12 were needed for essential systems. The aliens' representatives arrived as well, an Arcadian elder named Mael, and a grizzled Volith commander called Kraf. Tom was surprised by how quickly both alien representatives adapted to the reality of the situation. They reviewed the historical records without questioning their authenticity and offered valuable insights based on their species' historical knowledge of the previous Void War. Our oldest texts speak of the final battle, Mael explained during one strategy session. They describe great vessels of light forming a barrier across the spiral arm where the darkness first appeared. The barrier held for 7 cycles of our world before the Guardians were forced to retreat. Kraf, the Volith, clicked his mandibles in what Tom had learned was a sign of agreement. Volith war songs tell of the darkness that consumed without mercy and the shining shields that stood against it. Our ancestors fought alongside the Tall Ones, the Custodians, as you call them. Dr. Mercer looked up from her data tablet. The historical records confirm both accounts. The Custodians created a defensive line using the Sentinel network, but it wasn't enough to defeat the Void entirely. They could only contain it, push it back to the outer regions of the galaxy. And now it has returned, Tom said quietly. But this time, the Custodians aren't here to lead the defense. Meal's large eyes fixed on Tom. No, this time, their children must take their place. As the countdown to the advance force's arrival reached the final day, the Sentinel was humming with activity. The 12 human operators had taken their positions throughout the ship, with Tom in the central command node. Guardian had integrated itself into the ship's systems, its light form now able to appear anywhere within the vessel to provide guidance. Reports from across the galaxy confirmed that the other Sentinels were awakening. Several had already been reached by human crews sent from the nearest Alliance outposts. Others, in more distant regions, were still waiting. A massive diplomatic effort was underway to secure safe passage for human crews through alien territories to reach the remaining Sentinels. In orbit around the station, over 200 ships from 23 different species had gathered. Some had come to witness what might be the first engagement of a new Void War. Others had come to fight, offering their vessels as support for the Sentinel, despite knowing their conventional weapons would likely be useless. Tom stood in the command center, watching as the final preparations were completed. Dr. Mercer approached him, her expression a mixture of excitement and fear. All systems are operational, Commander. The Sentinel is at 100% capacity for the first time in nearly 100,000 years. Tom nodded. And the barrier generators? Ready. According to Guardian, they should be able to contain the advance force completely. Wilson joined them, wiping grease from his hands. Engine systems are online. We can maneuver if needed, though Guardian suggests we hold position and let the Void come to us. Where are our alien representatives? Observation deck, Wilson replied. They wanted to witness the approach. Tom checked the time. 1 hour until estimated contact. I should join them. He found Mael and Kraf standing before the massive viewport on the observation deck. The stars glittered against the blackness of space, peaceful and unchanged. For now. Commander Reed, Mael acknowledged without turning from the viewport. We have been discussing the old stories. In our legends, the final battle against the Void was not won by technology alone. Tom approached, standing between the two aliens. What do you mean? Kraf made a low clicking sound. The Void is intelligent, adaptive. The Custodians discovered that predictable defense patterns were eventually overcome. Victory required instinct, intuition, qualities that no AI, even one as advanced as Guardian, possesses. That's why the ships need human operators, Tom realized. Not just because of DNA recognition, but because the Custodians believed that their descendants would inherit the qualities needed to defeat the Void. Precisely, Mael confirmed. Your ancestors built these great machines, but they understood that machines alone could not win. The living mind, with its capacity for improvisation and intuitive leaps, was their true weapon. A soft alarm sounded throughout the ship. Guardian's voice came over the communication system. Void advance force detected at extreme sensor range. Estimated arrival in 42 minutes. Tom returned to the command center and took his position. The holographic displays showed the approaching darkness clearly now. A flowing, shifting mass that seemed to absorb light rather than simply block it. It moved with purpose, directly toward the Sentinel's position. All personnel to battle stations, Tom ordered. Barrier generators to standby. Purification beams charged and ready. The minutes ticked by as the dark mass grew larger on their sensors. Alliance ships and alien vessels moved to a safe distance, forming a wide perimeter around the Sentinel. Tom could feel the tension building among his crew, a mixture of fear and determination. "Commander," Guardian's voice came from beside him as its light form appeared. "I must inform you that this will be the first combat test of a Sentinel ship with human operators. While you carry custodian DNA, you lack their thousands of years of experience fighting the Void." "We'll have to learn quickly," Tom replied. "Humanity has always been good at that." The darkness was now visible without sensors, a patch of utter blackness against the star field, moving like liquid in zero gravity. As it approached, tendrils began to extend outward, reaching toward the Sentinel. "Barrier generators online," reported one of the operators. "Field extending now." A shimmering blue energy field surrounded the Sentinel ship, extending outward in a sphere. The Void tendrils touched it and recoiled, as if burned by the contact. The main mass paused, seeming to consider this resistance. "It's testing our defenses," Dr. Mercer observed, just as Guardian predicted. Suddenly, the dark mass surged forward, splitting into multiple streams that flowed around the barrier, seeking any weakness. Where the darkness touched the energy field, flashes of light erupted as the two forces fought for dominance. "Barrier holding at 94% efficiency," called an operator. "The Void is applying pressure to multiple points simultaneously." Tom watched as the darkness continued its assault, methodically testing different areas of the barrier. It was behaving intelligently, strategically, confirming Guardian's warnings about its nature. "Prepare purification beams," Tom ordered. "Target the largest concentration and fire when ready." Brilliant white-blue energy lanced out from the Sentinel's weapon emplacements, striking the dark mass. Where the beams touched, the darkness shredded and dissolved. Forced back from normal space, the Void entity recoiled, gathering itself into a more cohesive form as if reconsidering its approach. For 3 hours, the battle continued. The Void probed and attacked, while the Sentinel defended and counterattacked. The barrier weakened in places but held. The purification beams drove back the darkness repeatedly, but it always reformed and tried new approaches. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of tense combat, the dark entity began to retreat. It pulled back its tendrils and flowed away from the Sentinel, accelerating back toward deep space. "Is it over?" someone asked. Guardian's light form pulsed. "Negative. The advance force has gathered the information it sought. It now returns to the main body to share what it has learned about our defenses." Tom leaned back in his command chair, exhausted but relieved. "So we won this round?" "Yes," Guardian confirmed. "But the true test will come when the main Void force arrives. This was merely the first skirmish in what will be a long war." As reports of their success spread throughout human space and beyond, something unexpected happened. The alien fleets that had gathered to witness the battle began to offer formal alliances. Species that had been suspicious or hostile toward humans were now seeking partnerships, offering resources, ships, and support. In the Sentinel's conference room, Tom met with representatives from 12 different species, including Meal and Krath. The mood was solemn but determined. "What you have witnessed today is only the beginning," Tom told them. "According to Guardian, the main Void force is still coming, and it will be thousands of times more powerful than what we just faced. But now we have seen that it can be fought, Krath said, his mandibles clicking with what Tom had come to recognize as determination. The Harbinger, the Sentinel, is as powerful as our legends claimed. Mail nodded. And now all sentient species understand that humans are indeed the heirs of the custodians. The old alliances will be renewed. Tom looked around at the gathered aliens, beings that until recently had viewed humans as upstarts in the galactic community. Now they look to humanity with hope, with expectation. "We have 81 days to prepare for the main void force," Tom said. "We need to activate all remaining sentinels and position them according to Guardian's strategic recommendations. We need your help to reach the sentinels in your territories and to evacuate civilian populations from the projected path of the void." One by one, the alien representatives pledged their support. As the meeting concluded, Tom found himself standing alone with Guardian's light form. "The custodians would be proud," the AI said. "Their plan has worked. Their descendants have awakened in time to face the returning threat, and you have already begun to unite the younger species." Tom gazed out at the stars, thinking of Earth, a planet whose people still had no idea of their true heritage or the cosmic role they had been created to fulfill. "We ignored the warnings," he said quietly. "We dismissed the aliens' fears as superstition, but the myth was true, both the danger and our purpose in facing it." "Your ancestors built these sentinels as their legacy," Guardian replied. "But they knew that ships and weapons alone would not be enough. They created humanity not just as genetic vessels, but as inheritors of their courage and determination. The coming war will test both." As he looked out at the fleet of alien ships surrounding the Sentinel, Tom felt the weight of history, both the history humanity had known and the deeper, older truth they were just beginning to discover. The warship had indeed proven the myths were true, but it had revealed something more. Humanity's destiny among the stars was not just to explore, but to protect, to guard, to stand against the darkness that threatened all life. Behind him, the Sentinel hummed with power, ready for the battles to come. And across the galaxy, 49 more were awakening, calling out to the descendants of their creators. The ancient plan was in motion. The Guardians were returning, and this time they would not fail.